Have you ever found yourself wondering if your relationship with masturbation has crossed a line? It's something that most of us do in private, and it can feel harmless at first. But what happens when it starts taking control of your life? You might not even realize it, but there are subtle signs that your habit could be turning into something more serious. Maybe you've tried to cut back but found it harder than you thought. Or maybe you've noticed some changes in your physical, emotional, or mental well-being that you can't quite explain. Masturbation itself isn't inherently harmful. In fact, it's a normal part of life for many people. But when it becomes excessive, it can have negative consequences on your health, relationships, and daily functioning. In this video, we're going to explore 6 red flags that might indicate you're addicted to masturbation. These are not just guesses. These are signs backed by research and real-world experiences of individuals who found themselves trapped in this cycle. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer understanding of what these warning signs look like. And more importantly, you'll know what you can do to take control and break free if you're dealing with this issue. Stay tuned, because some of these red flags might surprise you, and recognizing them could be the first step toward reclaiming your energy, your focus, and your life. So let's dive in and see if any of these signs are affecting you or someone you know. Have you ever told yourself, "I'm not going to do it today," but ended up giving in anyway? That's one of the most telling signs that your relationship with masturbation might be crossing into unhealthy territory. The inability to control how often you masturbate is one of the earliest and most common signs of addiction. It's that internal battle where you know deep down that you're engaging in a behavior you don't want to, but you can't seem to stop. It's like your mind says stop, but your body overpowers that decision, and you find yourself acting out the habit again. This lack of control over the frequency of masturbation doesn't just signal a loss of willpower, it's a serious indicator of compulsive behavior that can have a ripple effect on your life. When you first start engaging in a behavior like masturbation, it may feel harmless. It might just be a release, or a way to wind down after a stressful day. But when it becomes something you do automatically, without thinking, even after you've made promises to yourself to stop, it starts to take on a life of its own. You may begin to feel like you're a passenger in your own actions, as if you don't have full control over your choices anymore. This lack of control is a significant red flag. Over time, it can erode your self-esteem, cause feelings of shame, and prevent you from pursuing more meaningful or rewarding activities. You might find yourself justifying the behavior in your mind. It's not that bad, or it's not hurting anyone. But the reality is, when you repeatedly fail to control your actions, it becomes harder and harder to break the cycle. It's not just about losing self-control in a moment of weakness. It's about becoming dependent on that release as a coping mechanism. What was once an occasional private act may begin to feel more like an automatic reflex, something you do whenever you feel stressed, bored, or anxious. And the more often you give in, the more ingrained this behavior becomes in your daily life. The issue here isn't just the frequency itself, but the emotional and psychological impact it has on you. Each time you tell yourself you won't do it, and then end up doing it anyway, you may feel a sense of guilt or frustration. This creates a cycle of negative emotions. You feel bad for giving in, and then to cope with that guilt you may turn to masturbation again. This is the cycle of addiction in action. It's not just about the physical act, but the emotional toll it takes on you. What happens next is even more concerning. As your behavior continues to escalate, your ability to control it weakens. You might start feeling like masturbation is the only way to unwind or escape, reinforcing the idea that you need it to cope with your emotions. And in some cases, this can lead to withdrawal from other activities that once brought you joy, such as exercising, socializing, or even working. The habit starts taking up more of your time and mental space, leaving less room for the things that matter most in your life. The truth is, when you can't control the frequency of masturbation, it's no longer a casual habit, it's a sign of compulsive behavior. This means your brain is wiring itself to seek out this immediate gratification more frequently. Studies on compulsive behaviors show that when a person becomes addicted to something, their brain's reward system begins to function differently. The more often you engage in the behavior, the more your brain craves it. This can make it even harder to stop, because each time you give in, your brain reinforces the idea that this is the way to feel good. You're stuck in a loop that's hard to break out of without conscious effort and intervention. If you're experiencing this lack of control, it's important to ask yourself, why is this happening? Why is this behavior becoming more frequent despite your best efforts to stop? Often, the answer lies in emotional triggers. Masturbation is often used as a way to escape negative emotions, stress, boredom, loneliness, or frustration. It becomes a temporary solution to feelings that you haven't yet learned how to address in healthier ways. And while masturbation may provide temporary relief, it doesn't deal with the root cause of the emotion. In fact, it often makes it worse because it prevents you from dealing with the underlying issues head-on. Breaking free from this cycle starts with understanding the triggers. What makes you feel the urge to masturbate? Is it stress, boredom, or loneliness? Recognizing these triggers is the first step toward taking back control of your behavior. The next step is finding healthier ways to cope with these emotions. Instead of relying on masturbation as a way to escape, try healthier alternatives like exercising, meditating, journaling, or talking to a friend. These activities may not give you the same immediate relief as masturbation, but they will help you build better coping mechanisms over time. Another powerful tool is setting boundaries for yourself. This might mean limiting your access to triggers, such as avoiding certain websites, social media platforms, or situations that might increase the urge to engage in the behavior. It could also involve setting up a new routine where you replace the time you would spend masturbating with something that enriches your life. Creating structure and accountability in your daily life is key to breaking the cycle of compulsive behavior. The more you can replace old habits with healthier ones, the easier it becomes to regain control. But regaining control isn't an overnight process. It takes time, self-compassion, and consistency. Each time you succeed in controlling the behavior, you build momentum and confidence. And when you slip up, don't beat yourself up. Understand that breaking a habit like this is challenging, but it's not impossible. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. It's also important to note that you don't have to do this alone. If you find that your lack of control over masturbation is seriously affecting your life, whether it's interfering with your relationships, work, or emotional health, it may be time to seek professional help. A therapist or counselor can help you uncover the underlying emotional issues that are driving the behavior and teach you strategies to regain control. There are also support groups and online communities where you can connect with others who are going through similar struggles. Remember, asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a step toward healing. In the end, masturbation, like any habit, can be a healthy part of life when it's in balance. But when it starts taking over, it's a sign that something deeper is at play. If you've been struggling with a lack of control, now is the time to take action. By understanding the triggers, setting boundaries, and seeking support, you can break free from the cycle and regain control of your life. Have you ever found yourself reaching for a quick fix when life feels overwhelming? Whether it's stress, anxiety, boredom, or loneliness, there's something about the urge to seek relief from discomfort that's almost automatic. For many people, masturbation becomes an emotional escape, a way to numb or distract from negative feelings. The problem arises when masturbation transitions from being a normal part of life to a go-to coping mechanism. In this section, we'll dive into how using masturbation as a crutch to deal with emotions can not only exacerbate your problems, but also lead to a cycle that's hard to break. And it might surprise you to realize how deeply this behavior can impact your mental and emotional well-being. First, let's look at how this works. Imagine you're having a stressful day at work or you've just had a difficult interaction with a friend or partner. What's your first impulse? For some people, it's reaching for their phone to scroll through social media. For others, it might be snacking or watching TV. But for many, masturbation becomes the ultimate escape from the weight of these emotions. The reason it works, at least temporarily, is that masturbation triggers a release of dopamine, the feel-good chemical in the brain. In a moment of stress, your brain craves relief, and masturbation provides a quick, immediate release of pleasure that takes the edge off. But this immediate relief is exactly where the issue begins. While masturbation can give you a temporary break from negative feelings, it doesn't address the root cause of those feelings. In fact, relying on it as your primary method of coping only serves to keep you stuck in a loop of avoidance. Every time you feel stressed, bored, or overwhelmed, you turn to masturbation for comfort. The problem is, you're not learning how to deal with these emotions in a healthy, constructive way. Instead of confronting the stressor, whether that's an argument, work pressure, or personal issues, you're bypassing it. Over time, This avoidance becomes habitual, and you might find that you're using masturbation as your go-to strategy for everything, from loneliness to boredom to frustration. The issue here is that while masturbation may provide temporary relief, it doesn't provide the long-term solution to the feelings you're trying to escape. When you rely on it to cope with your emotions, you're not processing them in a healthy way. In fact, you're reinforcing a pattern of emotional suppression, which can eventually worsen your mental health. Instead of working through your stress and emotions, you're numbing yourself to them. And over time, you may begin to feel more disconnected from your emotions, less able to cope with the ups and downs of life in a productive way. This creates a vicious cycle. You turn to masturbation as a way to escape, but once the temporary relief fades, you're left with the same negative emotions, often compounded by the guilt or shame that can accompany the act. Rather than feeling better, you may feel worse, more anxious, more lonely, or more disconnected. Instead of truly addressing what's bothering you, you're just pushing it down, and when it comes back, it often hits harder. This is especially dangerous because it leads to a reliance on an external coping mechanism, like masturbation, rather than developing the emotional tools to navigate life's challenges. The danger also lies in how this coping mechanism affects your self-esteem. When you continuously use masturbation to avoid discomfort, it can start to erode your sense of self-worth. You may find yourself trapped in a cycle of shame, feeling like you're not in control of your emotions or your actions. This sense of powerlessness can worsen your emotional state and deepen feelings of inadequacy. Over time, this could lead to isolation, as you may start to feel embarrassed or ashamed of your behavior and distance yourself from others. The emotional consequences of using masturbation as a coping mechanism aren't just psychological, they can also take a toll on your relationships. If masturbation becomes your primary outlet for emotional distress, you may begin to pull away from those around you. Instead of talking to a friend, partner, or therapist about what's bothering you, you turn inward, relying on the act to make you feel better. This can cause communication breakdowns and strain your relationships, as others may notice your avoidance or lack of emotional availability. The more you retreat into this coping mechanism, the harder it becomes to maintain meaningful connections with others. So what can you do about it? The first step is recognizing that using masturbation as a coping mechanism isn't helping you in the long term. It's providing short-term relief, but it's not solving the underlying issues that are causing the distress. From here, it's crucial to find healthier ways to cope with your emotions. Instead of resorting to masturbation when stress or anxiety hits, try learning new, more effective coping strategies. One powerful method is mindfulness. Mindfulness involves paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It can help you become more aware of your emotional state and the triggers that lead you to use masturbation as a way to escape. Through mindfulness, you can learn to sit with discomfort rather than running from it, which can be incredibly empowering. Practicing mindfulness through deep breathing, meditation, or grounding exercises can help you break the cycle of emotional avoidance and build stronger emotional resilience. Another useful strategy is physical activity. Exercise has been shown to release endorphins, which are natural mood boosters. Regular exercise can reduce stress, improve your mental health, and provide a much healthier outlet for your emotions than masturbation. Whether it's going for a walk, doing yoga, or hitting the gym, physical movement is a great way to regulate your emotions and cope with stress. Building stronger social connections is also vital in breaking the habit of using masturbation as an emotional escape. If you tend to isolate yourself or retreat inward when you're feeling down, make an effort to reach out to someone you trust. Having someone to talk to about your feelings, whether it's a friend, family member, or professional, can provide a sense of relief and comfort that masturbation can't offer. Developing strong emotional support systems is key to feeling less reliant on coping mechanisms that may be harmful in the long run. Finally, consider seeking professional help if you find it difficult to break free from using masturbation as a coping mechanism. Therapy, particularly cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, can help you identify unhealthy thought patterns and develop healthier coping strategies. A therapist can help you work through underlying emotional issues and teach you how to address stress, anxiety, and other difficult emotions in more constructive ways. It's important to understand that using masturbation to cope with emotions is not inherently wrong or shameful. However, When it becomes a primary method of dealing with negative feelings, it can lead to emotional numbing, isolation, and a lack of emotional growth. Recognizing this pattern is the first step toward healthier coping mechanisms and emotional well-being. It's about learning to face your feelings rather than run from them, and finding relief that doesn't leave you feeling worse in the end. Let's talk about the physical toll that excessive masturbation can take on your body. At first glance, you might think it's harmless. After all, it's a natural bodily function, and it's something many people do without issue. But when masturbation becomes excessive or habitual, it starts to affect you physically in ways you might not even notice. The body has its limits, and over time, the repeated act of overindulgence can leave you feeling drained, sore, or even dealing with more serious consequences. In this section, we'll dive into the physical side of things, how too much of this behavior can wear you down and leave you feeling tired, weak, or just out of balance. First, let's look at the most immediate physical effect: fatigue. You might have experienced this yourself. After engaging in masturbation, you feel tired. And not just a little bit tired, but genuinely drained, like you've exerted a significant amount of energy. It may not be as intense as running a marathon, but the act still takes a toll on your body. Masturbation, like any physical activity, can deplete your energy stores, especially when it's done frequently. It can lead to feelings of exhaustion, even if you haven't done anything else all day. This is a common experience for people who are caught in a cycle of compulsive masturbation. The more you engage in the act, the more you begin to feel physically worn out. What's happening here? When you orgasm, your body releases a series of chemicals, including dopamine, oxytocin, and prolactin. These chemicals are responsible for feelings of pleasure, relaxation, and satisfaction. While the release of these chemicals can feel good in the moment, it's also a form of physical depletion. Your body needs time to replenish these chemicals and recharge. But if you're constantly engaging in masturbation, you're continuously triggering the release of these chemicals without giving your body the time it needs to recover. Over time, this can leave you feeling drained and less energetic, as your body is essentially running on empty. Now let's talk about soreness and physical discomfort. If you've ever indulged too frequently, you might have noticed that you experience soreness in your genitals or lower back. This is another physical consequence of overindulgence. Just like any other repetitive physical activity, too much masturbation can lead to irritation, tenderness, or even pain. The tissues in the genital area can become overstimulated, which can cause discomfort or soreness after multiple sessions. In some cases, individuals may even develop more severe conditions like chafing or friction burns. On top of that, there's the issue of your nervous system. When you indulge in a behavior like masturbation, your body experiences a temporary spike in excitement, followed by a release. This fluctuation in energy can leave your nervous system feeling overstimulated. Over time, this can contribute to increased anxiety or restlessness. In extreme cases, compulsive masturbation can interfere with your body's ability to properly regulate its responses, leading to physical symptoms like jitteriness, difficulty focusing, or an overall sense of being on edge. If you're in a constant state of overstimulation, your body doesn't have the opportunity to enter a relaxed state. And this doesn't just affect your mind, it affects your entire system. This is why it's not uncommon for people who struggle with masturbation addiction to report feeling out of balance or physically off. Your body becomes used to the heightened stimulation, and it loses the ability to naturally rest and recover. Let's not forget about sleep. Sleep is another area that can be deeply impacted by excessive masturbation. In many cases, people who are caught in this cycle of compulsive behavior find it harder to sleep well. Why? Because of the way masturbation affects the body's hormone balance. When you orgasm, your body releases prolactin, which can make you feel sleepy or relaxed. While this can sometimes help with falling asleep initially, over time it can interfere with the quality of your sleep. People who engage in excessive masturbation may find that they experience poor sleep patterns, waking up frequently during the night, struggling to stay asleep, or feeling exhausted upon waking up. This is especially problematic when you consider how vital sleep is for overall health. Poor sleep can affect everything from your cognitive function to your immune system. Without quality rest, your body doesn't have the chance to repair and regenerate. So if masturbation is impacting your sleep, you might find yourself in a cycle of exhaustion that's hard to break. And as you get more tired, the urge to masturbate may increase. further perpetuating the cycle. Over time, the physical toll of excessive masturbation can lead to long-term consequences as well. For example, some people experience a decrease in libido or sexual dysfunction due to overstimulation. The body can begin to rely on frequent orgasms for pleasure, leading to difficulties in achieving orgasm during normal sexual activity. This is another vicious cycle. Your reliance on masturbation may impair your ability to enjoy or connect with your partner during intimate moments. Another physical effect that many don't realize is the impact it can have on your cardiovascular system. While masturbation may seem like a low-effort activity, it can still raise your heart rate and blood pressure, especially if done excessively. In some cases, individuals may even experience dizziness or lightheadedness after masturbating too frequently, as their body is trying to adjust to the constant surges in energy. This might not be something that happens immediately, but over time the strain can add up. So what can you do to mitigate these physical effects? The first step is recognizing that this is happening to your body. If you're feeling drained, sore, or physically unwell after masturbating, it's important to acknowledge that your body needs rest. Give yourself time to recover between sessions. The key is moderation. Just like any other activity, masturbation can be healthy when it's done in balance. You don't need to completely cut it out, but finding a healthier rhythm for your body to follow can prevent these physical consequences from becoming long-term issues. Another important aspect of regaining balance is addressing your overall health. If masturbation is affecting your energy levels, sleep, or physical comfort, it's time to refocus on self-care. Prioritize sleep, hydration, and nutrition. Engage in physical activities that help your body release natural endorphins, such as walking, swimming, or practicing yoga. The more you take care of your body in other ways, the less you'll feel the need to rely on masturbation for relief. Additionally, if you're experiencing persistent physical discomfort or if masturbation is affecting your sexual health, consider seeking help from a healthcare professional. A doctor or therapist specializing in sexual health can provide you with strategies to break the cycle and protect your body from further harm. In conclusion, while masturbation in moderation is completely normal, overdoing it can have a significant physical impact on your body. The key is awareness and balance. By paying attention to the signs your body is giving you and making adjustments as needed, you can enjoy the benefits of healthy sexual expression without suffering the physical consequences of overindulgence. As we continue our exploration into the signs of masturbation addiction, it's time to dive into one of the more concerning consequences of excessive masturbation: the impact it has on your responsibilities and relationships. You may not realize it, but when masturbation becomes a central focus of your life, it can begin to eat away at other areas that once held significant value. The responsibilities you once handled with ease, whether it's your work, your household chores, or your social interactions, start to slip through the cracks. The habits that once brought you joy and fulfillment may seem less important, and what was once a healthy part of your life becomes a source of avoidance. At first, masturbation might feel like just a small part of your routine, something you do in private to relieve stress or unwind. However, when it shifts from an occasional release to a habitual compulsive behavior, it begins to take up more and more of your time. What seemed harmless now starts to interfere with the things you need to do, the people you care about, and the activities that keep you connected to the world. Tasks you once completed easily, paying bills, going to work, taking care of household chores, suddenly seem less important compared to the relief or pleasure you get from masturbating. As this cycle continues, it becomes harder to stay on top of your responsibilities, and you may find yourself putting them off more and more. The first sign of this shift is the growing tendency to procrastinate on important tasks. The urge to masturbate often feels overwhelming, and rather than tackling something you know needs to be done, whether it's a project at work or responding to emails, you may find yourself retreating into the act. In the moment, it may feel like a form of escape, a way to avoid facing the stress or discomfort associated with those tasks. But the problem arises when procrastination becomes a regular habit. Over time, your work performance starts to suffer, deadlines are missed, and the pressure mounts. You may feel guilty for not fulfilling your responsibilities, but the urge to engage in the addictive behavior takes precedence. This neglect of responsibilities can also spill over into your personal life. You might find yourself avoiding social engagements or declining invitations from friends or family because you'd rather be alone, giving in to the urge. What was once a healthy social life may begin to dwindle. Over time, this avoidance creates a distance between you and the people who matter most. Relationships that once brought joy, connection, and a sense of fulfillment can begin to feel like burdens. You may start pulling away, unable or unwilling to participate in activities or conversations that used to be part of your daily life. At first, the isolation may feel comforting. After all, being alone can provide an escape from external pressure or expectations. But over time, the loneliness becomes more pronounced. You may begin to feel disconnected from your friends, family, and even yourself. The more you engage in the addictive behavior, the more isolated you become. It becomes a cycle. The more you retreat from others, the more you use masturbation as an escape, and the more disconnected you feel from the world around you. This emotional isolation not only harms your social life, but it can also contribute to feelings of sadness, anxiety, or depression. The biggest challenge here is that this emotional distance often goes unnoticed until it's too late. People who are caught up in the cycle of addiction may rationalize their behavior, telling themselves they're simply taking a break from their responsibilities, or that they need time alone. But the reality is that the longer this behavior continues unchecked, the harder it becomes to reintegrate into meaningful relationships or fulfill obligations. The weight of the neglect starts to add up, and before you know it, your responsibilities feel overwhelming, and your relationships feel strained. If you're finding yourself caught in this cycle of procrastination and isolation, it's important to reflect on why this is happening. The act of avoiding responsibility may feel like a temporary solution to stress or discomfort, but it's actually contributing to long-term problems. When you don't confront your obligations, they only grow in size and complexity. Whether it's work, finances, or personal relationships, procrastination sets you up for more stress and anxiety down the road. The act of avoiding doesn't make the problems disappear. It just buries them beneath layers of guilt and frustration. Now let's look at how masturbation addiction can affect your relationships in a more direct way. Masturbation itself isn't inherently harmful to a relationship, but when it becomes excessive, it starts to take time and energy away from your partner. A healthy sexual relationship involves mutual connection and communication. But when masturbation becomes the primary outlet for sexual release, it can create emotional distance between partners. The desire to masturbate might override the desire to connect with your partner physically, and intimacy in the relationship may start to diminish. You might begin to feel less interested in engaging sexually with your partner, or you might experience sexual dysfunction, such as difficulty achieving or maintaining an erection due to overstimulation from frequent masturbation. This lack of interest in physical intimacy can cause friction in relationships. Your partner may feel neglected or rejected, and they might start to question your level of commitment or attraction to them. This disconnect can lead to frustration, feelings of inadequacy, and emotional strain. Over time, if this issue is left unaddressed, it can contribute to a breakdown in communication, intimacy, and overall relationship satisfaction. Partners may feel like they're competing with the addiction, which is a difficult and hurtful place to be. So what can you do if you find that masturbation is negatively impacting your responsibilities and relationships? The first step is acknowledging the issue. Recognizing that your behavior is affecting your life in ways you hadn't realized is key to breaking the cycle. Once you're aware of how masturbation is taking over, it's time to make changes. Start by creating a plan to manage your time more effectively. Set boundaries for yourself and stick to them. If you find that the urge to masturbate is taking away from important tasks, try implementing small breaks throughout your day where you can redirect your focus to something more productive. Use these breaks to stretch, take a walk, or engage in a healthy activity that helps to reset your mind. Another important step is reconnecting with the people who matter most. If you've isolated yourself, make a conscious effort to reach out to friends and family. Rebuild your social connections by participating in activities or having meaningful conversations. Let your loved ones know that you're working on breaking the cycle, and ask for their support as you navigate this challenge. Being open and honest about your struggle can help reduce feelings of isolation and shame, and it can strengthen your relationships. Finally, remember that addressing this issue might require professional help. If you're finding it difficult to balance your responsibilities or maintain healthy relationships, consider seeking guidance from a therapist. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, has been shown to help individuals manage compulsive behaviors, and a therapist can work with you to identify the underlying causes of your behavior and provide practical strategies for change. You don't have to do it alone, and seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. In conclusion, when masturbation becomes a coping mechanism and a central part of your routine, it starts to interfere with the things that matter most: your responsibilities, your relationships, and your emotional health. The key to breaking free from this cycle is recognizing the impact it's having on your life and taking action. Whether it's through better time management, reconnecting with loved ones, or seeking professional support, you can regain control and restore balance in your life. Remember, masturbation itself isn't the issue. It's when it takes over and starts to detract from the important things that it becomes problematic. If you've ever found that the initial satisfaction you got from masturbation isn't enough anymore, or if you're beginning to feel like you need more to reach that same level of gratification, then you're not alone. This is one of the key red flags of masturbation addiction: the escalation of behavior. Just like with other addictive behaviors, the more you indulge, the more your brain becomes desensitized to the pleasure it once derived from it. Over time, what started as an occasional or moderate habit can spiral into a need for more extreme stimulation, just to achieve the same satisfaction. In this section, we'll look at how increased tolerance plays a pivotal role in the cycle of addiction, and how this escalating behavior can leave you feeling out of control. Let's begin by understanding what tolerance really means in the context of masturbation. Tolerance refers to the process where, after repeated exposure to a pleasurable stimulus, the body's response diminishes. What once brought you satisfaction now takes more time, more intensity, or a different kind of stimulation to have the same effect. In the case of masturbation, it might mean that you need to engage in more frequent sessions or seek out more extreme or varied fantasies, videos, or images to feel the same level of arousal or pleasure. In essence, your brain becomes less sensitive to the normal stimuli and craves more to achieve the same reward. It's similar to the way someone who regularly drinks alcohol may find that over time, they need to consume more to feel intoxicated. This escalating need for more intense stimulation can be dangerous. As you start needing more extreme or frequent forms of sexual content to achieve satisfaction, you might find yourself seeking out things that are outside of your usual range of experiences. What was once enjoyable and satisfying may no longer suffice, so you begin to push boundaries. This can lead to unhealthy patterns, where you're consistently looking for more intense content, longer sessions, or more extreme forms of arousal, just to match what your brain has become accustomed to. This escalation can have a number of negative effects on both your physical and mental health, as well as on your relationships. The first issue here is that escalating behavior often leads to greater isolation. As your needs become more specific or extreme, you may find that it's harder to maintain any connection to a normal, healthy sexual experience with a partner. What was once pleasurable and intimate becomes overshadowed by your desire for constant and heightened stimulation. The more your tolerance increases, the less likely it becomes that regular, real-life sexual encounters will satisfy you in the same way. And this doesn't just affect sexual interactions, it spills over into how you view intimacy as a whole. You begin to disconnect from the emotional aspects of intimacy, focusing solely on the physical satisfaction that masturbation provides. Furthermore, as your desire for more intense stimulation grows, you may also find yourself relying on technology and content that wasn't part of your original behavior. This could mean increasing your consumption of pornography, seeking out more extreme or niche material, or spending more time online to fuel your addiction. While this may seem like an outlet in the short term, it's actually a symptom of a much deeper issue: the need for external stimulation to fill a void that hasn't been addressed emotionally or psychologically. This constant search for more can lead you down a path where you're increasingly detached from real, meaningful connections, both with yourself and others. Another alarming aspect of this increasing need for stimulation is the effect it can have on your mental health. When you begin to rely on extreme sexual content to get satisfaction, it can lead to feelings of shame, guilt, and confusion. You might start to wonder why what once felt satisfying now feels like it isn't enough. This self-doubt and confusion can be compounded by the guilt that often follows excessive indulgence. People caught in this cycle often report feeling bad about their behavior afterward, yet the drive to engage in the act persists. This internal conflict between the desire to stop and the urge to continue can create a sense of frustration and helplessness, which only fuels the addiction further. This increased tolerance can also lead to more physical problems. The more frequently you masturbate, the more strain you put on your body, especially the sensitive areas involved in the act. Over time, frequent stimulation can lead to soreness, chafing, and discomfort. In some extreme cases, individuals may experience issues like erectile dysfunction or difficulty reaching orgasm due to overstimulation. The body's natural response system begins to get worn out, and it starts to struggle with achieving the same level of pleasure or satisfaction that once came easily. Perhaps one of the most dangerous aspects of escalating behavior in masturbation addiction is the way it impacts your sense of control. What started out as something you could manage now feels like it's spiraling out of your hands. As you find yourself unable to resist the urge to masturbate or keep up with the increasing demands of your habit, it can feel like you've lost control. You might find yourself neglecting other important areas of your life, work, relationships, health, just to continue feeding the need for greater sexual release. The cycle becomes self-perpetuating. The more you give in, the more you need, and the more you need, the harder it becomes to stop. This escalating behavior can leave you feeling trapped and defeated, as though you're at the mercy of an urge that's completely out of your control. So, what can you do if you recognize that your behavior is escalating, and you're feeling like your tolerance is getting higher and higher? The first thing is to acknowledge that this is happening. Understanding that your brain and body are beginning to adapt to the behavior is the first step toward breaking the cycle. It's important to realize that this escalation doesn't have to be permanent. It can be reversed with conscious effort. One of the most effective ways to break this escalating pattern is by gradually reducing the frequency and intensity of your masturbation sessions. This might sound difficult, but it's essential to create new habits that involve lowering the reliance on extreme forms of stimulation. Start by limiting your access to pornography or other content that fuels your addiction. Removing the temptation to seek out extreme material can be a powerful step toward breaking the cycle. Additionally, find healthier ways to channel your sexual energy and desires. This could mean engaging in physical activities that release pent-up energy, like exercising or participating in activities that get your mind off the need for sexual gratification. These activities not only help you redirect your focus, but they also have physical and mental benefits that can aid in resetting your brain's reward system. Mindfulness and meditation can also play a significant role in breaking the cycle. These practices help you become more aware of your thoughts, urges, and emotional triggers. By being mindful of your impulses, you can make more conscious decisions rather than reacting impulsively to the urge to masturbate. Therapy, particularly cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, can also help you identify the underlying emotional issues that are driving the need for increasing sexual stimulation. A therapist can help you understand why you feel the need to escalate and provide tools to manage your behavior in a healthier way. Escalating behavior in masturbation addiction is a clear warning sign that something deeper is at play. It's not just about the physical act anymore, it's about a pattern of behavior that's taking control of your life. Recognizing this escalation is the first step in regaining control and breaking free from the addiction. Through gradual changes, self-reflection, and support, you can learn to manage your urges in a way that doesn't compromise your health, relationships, or overall well-being. Masturbation, like any other habit or behavior, doesn't exist in a vacuum. While it may initially seem like a purely physical act, it has profound emotional and psychological consequences that you may not always recognize, especially if you're trapped in a cycle of compulsive behavior. In this section, we'll explore how excessive masturbation can affect your emotional and mental well-being. The most insidious part of this addiction is how it impacts the way you view yourself, your relationships, and your sense of worth. Over time, the emotional toll can accumulate, leaving you feeling more isolated, ashamed, and disconnected from the things that once mattered most. Let's start with one of the most common psychological effects of masturbation addiction: guilt and shame. It's almost inevitable that, as you become more entrenched in the behavior, you'll begin to feel a sense of guilt afterward. This isn't just because of the physical act itself, but because you know deep down that it's not healthy, and that it's beginning to interfere with your life. In fact, for many people who struggle with masturbation addiction, guilt becomes a defining emotional response. You may have told yourself you were done, you were going to stop, but then the urge hits, and once again you give in. This repeated cycle of giving in and feeling guilty creates a sense of inner conflict and emotional turmoil. The more you give in to this behavior, the more you start to internalize feelings of shame. This is especially true in a society that often attaches stigma to topics like masturbation or sexuality. If you've been raised in an environment where sex is seen as taboo or something to be ashamed of, this internalized shame can intensify. You may begin to view yourself as weak, out of control, or morally compromised. This feeling of shame can eat away at your self-esteem, leading to self-loathing or feelings of worthlessness. You may even start distancing yourself from others, because you feel unworthy or like you're hiding a deep, dark secret. But this guilt and shame aren't just fleeting feelings. They can spiral out of control if left unchecked. The longer you stay stuck in the cycle, the more your self-worth becomes tied to this behavior. You might begin to believe that you're not capable of changing, or that this behavior defines who you are. And when you feel this way, it's easy to convince yourself that there's no point in trying to stop, or that you'll always be trapped in this pattern. This is the emotional cost of masturbation addiction, the erosion of your self-esteem, and the sense of being stuck in a life that's out of your control. Beyond guilt and shame, there's another psychological consequence of excessive masturbation: emotional numbness. Masturbation, especially when used as a coping mechanism, can create a temporary escape from uncomfortable feelings. It's a quick fix to numb yourself from stress, anxiety, or loneliness. But the problem with using masturbation as an emotional crutch is that, over time, it can prevent you from fully experiencing your emotions. When you rely on this behavior to avoid discomfort, you begin to shut off from the emotional landscape of your own life. Instead of addressing your emotions, whether they're sadness, frustration, or anger, you engage in the behavior, which creates a temporary high but doesn't allow you to process or understand the root cause of what's going on inside. This emotional numbness can affect your mental health in a number of ways. You might find it harder to connect with your emotions, or to experience joy or excitement in life. The highs and lows of life, the things that once made you feel alive and connected, become muted. You may also find that you start to feel more disconnected from others, unable to share your true feelings or be vulnerable. Over time, this emotional detachment can lead to feelings of isolation, depression, or anxiety. When you suppress your emotions with masturbation, it becomes harder to access those emotional experiences that can help you grow and heal. What's more, excessive masturbation can also interfere with your ability to form and maintain healthy relationships. Healthy relationships require trust, vulnerability, and intimacy, none of which can thrive when you're emotionally shut off. If you're constantly turning to masturbation to cope with your emotions, you may begin to isolate yourself from friends, family, or a partner. You might even find it difficult to be emotionally present with those you care about. The more you indulge in this addictive behavior, the more you might feel disconnected from the people around you, and the harder it becomes to establish deep, meaningful connections. In relationships, emotional intimacy is a critical part of bonding. But when you're too focused on masturbation as a form of release, the desire for emotional intimacy can wane. You might find yourself less interested in engaging with your partner emotionally, or you might push them away without even realizing it. Masturbation becomes the outlet for your emotional needs, leaving little room for the emotional connection you share with others. This not only impacts your romantic relationships, but can also affect friendships and family connections, leading to loneliness and dissatisfaction in your social life. So what can you do about the emotional and psychological consequences of excessive masturbation? The first step is recognizing that this behavior isn't just about physical release, it's deeply tied to your emotions and mental health. Understanding that your urge to masturbate may be a response to unaddressed emotions is key to breaking the cycle. Start by paying attention to the emotions you're avoiding. Are you turning to masturbation when you're feeling stressed, lonely, anxious, or overwhelmed? What's really going on underneath the surface? Rather than reaching for the temporary escape, take a moment to sit with your feelings. Try journaling, meditating, or talking to a trusted friend about what's going on. This practice of emotional awareness helps you reconnect with your feelings and build healthier coping mechanisms. It's also important to rebuild your self-esteem. As we discussed earlier, guilt and shame can severely affect your sense of worth. But it's essential to understand that you are not defined by your behavior. This addiction doesn't make you a bad person, and it's possible to regain control. Be kind to yourself as you work through this. Forgive yourself for past mistakes, and remember that change takes time. Setting small, achievable goals for yourself, whether it's reducing the frequency of masturbation or learning to cope with emotions in healthier ways, can help rebuild your confidence and self-worth. Another effective strategy is to build emotional intimacy in your relationships. Whether you're single or in a relationship, practice being vulnerable with others. Share your struggles, your feelings, and your fears with those you trust. Opening up emotionally can help you feel more connected to others and reduce the isolation that often accompanies masturbation addiction. When you build healthy emotional connections, you're less likely to rely on masturbation as a way to escape or numb yourself. Finally, seeking professional help can be incredibly beneficial. A therapist specializing in sexual health or addiction can help you understand the root causes of your behavior and work with you to develop healthier coping strategies. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is often particularly effective in breaking compulsive cycles and addressing the emotional issues that contribute to addiction. As we've explored throughout this video, excessive masturbation, when it becomes a compulsive behavior, can have far-reaching consequences that extend beyond the immediate physical pleasure it offers. It's not just about the act itself, it's about the broader impact it has on your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. From increased tolerance and reliance on extreme stimulation to the emotional guilt and shame that can cloud your self-worth, masturbation addiction can become a destructive cycle that leaves you feeling trapped and disconnected from the world around you. But here's the truth: you don't have to stay stuck in this cycle. It may feel overwhelming at times, and you might even question whether it's possible to regain control. But the reality is that change is always possible. The first step is acknowledging the issue and understanding that, while the path forward may require effort and patience, you have the power to transform your relationship with this behavior. You don't have to let it define you or take over your life. You are capable of regaining your sense of control and restoring balance to your physical, emotional, and social life. Throughout this video, we've looked at how excessive masturbation can lead to a variety of issues, from physical fatigue, soreness, and loss of energy, to the emotional and psychological toll of guilt, shame, and isolation. We also explored how it can affect relationships, work responsibilities, and overall life satisfaction. Each of these consequences is a reminder that when a behavior starts to control you rather than the other way around, it's time to reassess your habits and make changes for the better. But don't be discouraged. Recognizing the problem is the hardest part, and it's the first step in reclaiming your life. The good news is that there are practical steps you can take to break free from this cycle. You don't have to face this challenge alone. Many people struggle with similar issues, and there's no shame in seeking help. Whether it's talking to a therapist, practicing mindfulness, or simply creating a schedule that helps you focus on healthier outlets for your energy, there's always a path forward. Start by setting small, realistic goals. Whether you aim to reduce the frequency of masturbation, increase your physical activity, or rebuild your relationships, every step you take toward healthier behaviors counts. It might not be an overnight change, but each day is an opportunity to improve. Break down the larger goal into manageable steps that you can track. When you do experience setbacks, which you likely will, don't be too hard on yourself. Understand that recovery is a process, and progress is often made in small, steady increments. Allow yourself the space to learn from your mistakes and adjust your approach as needed. Next, build up healthier coping mechanisms to deal with stress, anxiety, or boredom, emotions that often drive the urge to engage in compulsive behavior. Exercise, meditation, journaling, or spending time in nature are just a few examples of healthier ways to channel your energy. Developing these new habits will help you replace masturbation as the primary source of release, making it easier to resist the urge when it strikes. Reaching out to loved ones and fostering strong social connections will also provide the emotional support you need during this time. Talking openly about your challenges can ease the feelings of isolation that often accompany addiction. Seeking professional help is another vital step in this process. A therapist, especially one experienced in addiction and sexual health, can help you work through the deeper emotional issues that may be driving your behavior. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is particularly effective in addressing compulsive habits and helping you identify and change the thought patterns that support them. Remember, there is no shame in seeking professional help. It's a sign of strength and commitment to living a healthier, more balanced life. As you work toward making positive changes, it's also important to remind yourself that you are more than the sum of your behaviors. While addiction can make you feel disconnected from your true self, it's essential to remember that you have the power to redefine your relationship with yourself and your desires. Your value is not determined by the things you struggle with, but by your ability to confront those struggles and grow stronger as a result. The journey to recovery may feel long and challenging, but it is possible, and the rewards of taking back control are immeasurable. Imagine a life where you are fully present in your relationships, where you can pursue your goals with clarity and energy, and where you no longer feel weighed down by guilt or shame. That life is within reach. Take the first step today. Start small, be patient with yourself, and know that every effort you make is a step toward a more fulfilling and balanced life. You deserve to feel empowered, connected, and in control of your own choices. Don't let addiction define you. Take back your power and move toward the life you truly want. Thank you for watching this video and joining us on this journey. If you found the information helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who may benefit. Your support helps us create more content that can inform and inspire. If you're ready to make a change, we believe in your ability to do so, and we're here to support you along the way. Stay tuned for more videos that dive deeper into topics like this. And remember, no matter where you are in your journey, you are not alone. Let's move forward together.